History is full of whispers. Those whispers speak of secrets of hidden truths and conspiracies lurking beneath the surface. Some dismiss these whispers as mere paranoia and the ramblings of those who see shadows where there is only light. Yet time and again history has shown us that sometimes a whisper deserves our attention. These whispers tell tales of real conspiracies orchestrated in the halls of power hidden from the public eye. America, despite its ideals of transparency and justice, is no stranger to such conspiracies. Throughout the decades, events have unfolded that have shaken the nation's foundation, revealing a darker side to the land of the free. These were not mere figments of imagination, but rather carefully orchestrated plots, often involving those in the highest echelons of power. These conspiracies, once shrouded in secrecy, were eventually exposed, leaving an indelible mark on the American psyche. The unveiling of these conspiracies forced America to confront uncomfortable truths about its own systems and the potential for corruption within them. Each exposure serves as a stark reminder that power, when unchecked, can be easily manipulated and abused. These events underscored the fragility of democracy and the constant need for vigilance, transparency, and most important, accountability. I don't think people understand the parallels between the Watergate scandal and the current situation surrounding former President Donald Trump and President Biden. The Watergate scandal, a term etched in the annals of American history, stands as a chilling testament to the abuse of power and the significance of a free press. What began as a seemingly insignificant break-in at the Democratic National Committee headquarters in the Watergate complex soon unraveled into a labyrinth of lies, deceit, and criminal activity reaching the highest office in the land. The scandal, initially dismissed by the Nixon administration as a third-rate burglary, ultimately exposed a web of political espionage, illegal activities, and a deeply entrenched cover-up that shocked the world. The persistent efforts of journalists, whistleblowers, and investigators slowly peeled back the layers of deception and revealing the truth behind the Watergate break-in and the subsequent efforts to obstruct justice. The weight of evidence, including the infamous Oval Office tapes, confirmed President Nixon's involvement in the cover-up, ultimately forcing his resignation in 1974. The Watergate scandal was a pivotal moment in American history, leaving an enduring legacy that continues to shape the nation's political landscape. Watergate was not an isolated incident. Sadly, it was just one of many instances where powerful individuals and institutions within the United States government were found to have engaged in unethical, illegal, and deeply disturbing activities. These activities, often justified in the name of national security or for the greater good, betrayed the very principles upon which the nation was founded. The Watergate story begins not in the corridors of power, but in the shadows with a group known as the White House Plumbers. Tasked with plugging leaks and silencing dissent, this secretive unit operated outside the law, engaging in covert operations to protect the Nixon administration from its perceived enemies. One of their targets was the Democratic National Committee, headquartered in the Watergate complex. On June 17, 1972, 5 men were apprehended inside the DNC office, caught red-handed, attempting to install listening devices. The burglars linked to the committee to re-elect the president were quickly identified, and the media, sensing a story bigger than a simple break-in, began to dig deeper. The Nixon administration, eager to contain the fallout, downplayed the incident, dismissing it as a third-rate burglary. However, 2 Washington Post reporters, Bob Woodward and Carl Bernstein, driven by a relentless pursuit truth, refused to let the story die. Following a trail of money and connections, they began to uncover a network of intrigue that stretched far beyond the Watergate break-in. Working tirelessly, Woodward and Bernstein cultivated sources within the government, piecing together fragments of information, often meeting in shadowy parking garages with a mysterious informant known only as Deep Throat. Their investigation, fraught with danger and uncertainty, began to expose a web of corruption, deceit, and abuse of power that reached the highest levels of the Nixon administration. Deep Throat, later revealed to be FBI Associate Director Mark Felt, provided Woodward and Bernstein with crucial guidance and confirmation, helping them navigate the labyrinth of lies and cover-ups. Guided by Deep Throat's cryptic clues, the reporters uncovered a clandestine operation within the White House, a campaign of political sabotage and espionage directed at Nixon's opponents. Meanwhile, the Watergate trial commenced, capturing the attention of the nation. John Dean, former White House counsel, delivered explosive testimony implicating top administration officials, including President Nixon himself, in the cover-up. Dean's revelations left the courtroom in silence, shattering the image of an administration already trying to reel from the scandal. The Senate, responding to public outcry, formed a select committee to investigate the Watergate affair. The televised hearings, broadcast into living rooms across America, exposing the inner workings of the scandal and the lengths to which the Nixon administration had gone to silence its critics. As the investigation progressed, a critical piece of evidence emerged: the existence of a secret taping system within the Oval Office. President Nixon, claiming executive privilege, refused to release the tape, setting the stage for a constitutional crisis. The Supreme Court, in a landmark ruling, ordered Nixon to surrender the tapes, dealing a significant blow to the president's defense. The release of the tapes revealed the shocking truth: President Nixon had been actively involved in the Watergate cover-up from the very beginning. The tapes captured Nixon discussing hush money payments, approving plans to obstruct justice, and attempting to use government agencies to silence his critics. The smoking gun tape, recorded just days after the break-in, captured Nixon and his chief of staff discussing using the CIA to thwart the FBI's investigation. This damning evidence proved beyond doubt that the president had abused his power and obstructed justice. Facing impeachment and certain removal from office, Nixon resigned on August 9, 1974. The scandal exposed the dangers of unchecked power, and the nation watched in disbelief as a president once considered untouchable was brought down by his own actions. A stark reminder that no one, not even the most powerful person in the world, is above the law. The legacy of Watergate continues to resonate today, serving as a cautionary tale about the fragility of democracy and the importance of holding those in power accountable. While the Watergate scandal exposed the abuse of power in the highest office, another horrifying conspiracy was unfolding in the heartland of America. This scandal, however, did not involve political espionage or cover-ups, but rather a chilling disregard for human life and dignity. This was the Tuskegee Syphilis Study, a 40-year experiment conducted on unsuspecting African-American men in Macon County, Alabama. The study, initiated in 1932 by the U.S. Public Health Service, aimed to observe the natural progression of untreated syphilis. However, the researchers, driven by a perverse sense of scientific curiosity and racial bias, chose to withhold treatment from the participants even after penicillin became widely available as a cure in the 1940s. The men, lured by the promise of free medical care, were never informed of their true diagnosis. Instead, they were told they were being treated for bad blood, a catch-all term for various ailments. They were subjected to painful and unnecessary procedures, all under the guise of medical treatment. The researchers, in their pursuit of data, ignored the suffering of their subjects, treating them not as human beings but as mere specimens in a cruel experiment. The study continued for decades, shrouded in secrecy, its true nature hidden from the public eye. The men, unaware of the deception, continued to believe they were receiving proper medical care while the disease ravaged their bodies, leading to blindness, mental illness, heart disease, and death. The Tuskegee Syphilis Study remained hidden from public view until 1972, when a whistleblower, Peter Buxton, a former venereal disease investigator, brought the story to the attention of the Washington Post. The newspaper published a series of articles exposing the study's horrifying details, sparking national outrage and condemnation. The public was disturbed to learn that their own government had sanctioned such a morally reprehensible experiment. The study, with its blatant disregard for human rights and its exploitation of a vulnerable population, became a symbol of medical racism and scientific misconduct. The exposure of the Tuskegee study led to congressional hearings, investigations, and a national reckoning on the ethics of medical research. The study also resulted in the passage of the National Research Act of 1974, which mandated the establishment of institutional review boards, IRBs, to oversee and approve all federally funded research involving human subjects. On May 16, 1997, in the East Room of the White House, then-President Bill Clinton issued a formal apology for the Tuskegee Syphilis Study, acknowledging the government's role in the injustice. The apology, while a significant step towards reconciliation, could not erase the pain and suffering endured by the men of Tuskegee and their families. The Tuskegee Syphilis Study serves as a chilling reminder of the potential for abuse within the medical and scientific communities. It highlights the dangers of unchecked power, racial bias, and the need for ethical oversight in research. The legacy of Tuskegee continues to cast a long shadow over the relationship between African Americans and the medical establishment. The study has fueled mistrust and skepticism, making it challenging to recruit minority participants for clinical trials and other research studies. The Tuskegee Syphilis Study is not merely a dark chapter in American history, but a stark reminder of the ongoing need to address racial disparities in healthcare and to ensure that all research involving human subjects is conducted ethically and with respect for human dignity. The echoes of Tuskegee can be felt in contemporary debates about vaccine hesitancy, medical experimentation, and the need for diversity and inclusion in research. The study serves as a constant reminder that the pursuit of knowledge must never come at the expense of human life and dignity. As the world grappled with the horrors of Nazi medical experiments in the wake of World War II, a sinister undertaking was taking root within the United States. Shrouded in secrecy and fueled by Cold War paranoia, this was MKUltra, a top-secret program initiated by the CIA in the 1950s, aimed at exploring the potential of mind control and chemical interrogation. Driven by a fear of falling behind the Soviet Union in the burgeoning field of mind control, the CIA embarked on a series of clandestine experiments that would later come to be seen as one of the most egregious abuses of power in American history. The agency, operating under a veil of secrecy, sought to develop techniques to manipulate individuals, control their thoughts and actions, and extract information through unconventional means. At the heart of MKUltra was a dangerous fascination with mind-altering drugs, particularly LSD. The CIA believed that LSD, with its ability to induce hallucinations and alter perceptions, held the key to unlocking the secrets of mind control. The agency, convinced of the drug's potential, embarked on a reckless and unethical campaign of experimentation, often with devastating consequences. The CIA's quest for mind control extended beyond the laboratory and into the real world. The agency, seeking to test its methods on unsuspecting subjects, established front organizations, infiltrated academic institutions, and partnered with hospitals and prisons, all under the guise of legitimate research. Unwitting individuals, ranging from mental health patients to prisoners to ordinary citizens, became unwitting subjects in the CIA's twisted experiments. The CIA's experiments, often conducted without the knowledge or consent of the subjects involved, administering high doses of LSD, electroshock therapy, hypnosis, and other forms of psychological torture. The agency, obsessed with achieving its goals, showed a callous disregard for the well-being of its subjects, many of whom suffered long-term psychological trauma as a result of their ordeal. One particularly disturbing aspect of MKUltra was the CIA's use of its own employees as test subjects. In one infamous incident known as Operation Midnight Climax, the agency set up safe houses in San Francisco and New York City, where unsuspecting men were lured and dosed with LSD, their actions observed and recorded through two-way mirrors. The CIA's experiments were not confined to the United States. The agency, operating under the cover of various foreign policy initiatives, conducted experiments on prisoners of war, foreign nationals, and even unsuspecting citizens of allied nations. The full extent of the CIA's activities during the MKUltra era remains unknown, as many records were destroyed in 1973 on the orders of then CIA Director Richard Helms. The destruction of these records, while intended to protect the agency from scrutiny, only served to fuel further suspicion and distrust. MKUltra. Once a shadowy rumor began to emerge into the public consciousness as journalists, researchers, and victims themselves began to piece together the fragments of the program's sinister history. The revelations surrounding MKUltra sent shockwaves through not just the nation, but the world as a whole, prompting congressional hearings, investigations, and calls for reform. The American public, horrified to learn of their own government's involvement in such unethical and inhumane activities, demanded accountability and transparency. The Senate Church Committee, formed in 1975 to investigate intelligence abuses, held a series of hearings on MKUltra, exposing the program's shocking details to the world. The committee's findings revealed a pattern of reckless experimentation, a disregard for human rights, and a blatant disregard for the law. The MKUltra scandal had a profound impact on the public's perception of the CIA and the intelligence community as a whole. The agency, once viewed as a protector of national security, was now seen by many as a rogue organization operating outside the bounds of law and morality. The legacy of MKUltra continues to haunt the United States today, serving as a stark reminder of the dangers of unchecked power, the importance of government transparency, and the need to safeguard individual rights even in the name of national security. The program's dark history continues to fuel conspiracy theories and distrust in government, serving as a constant reminder of the potential for abuse within the halls of power. As the civil rights movement gained momentum in the 1950s and 60s, challenging the deeply rooted structures of racial segregation and discrimination, a sinister force was operating within the United States government, seeking to undermine and dismantle these movements for social justice. This force, known as COINTELPRO, short for Counterintelligence Program, was a series of covert and illegal operations conducted by the FBI. The FBI targeted not only a wide range of domestic and political organizations, but also individuals they deemed subversive. COINTELPRO, conceived in an era of Cold War paranoia and fueled by a fear of communist infiltration, quickly morphed into a tool for silencing dissent and suppressing any movement perceived as a threat to the status quo. The FBI, under the leadership of J. Edgar Hoover, viewed civil rights activists, anti-war protesters, and other advocates for social change, dangerous radicals, threats to national security that needed to be neutralized by any means necessary. Operating under a veil of secrecy and with little to no oversight, the FBI engaged in a wide range of illegal and unethical activities under the umbrella of COINTELPRO. The agency infiltrated targeted organizations, planted false information, spread rumors, disinformation, and instigated violence. They used blackmail and intimidation tactics to disrupt and discredit these groups and their leaders. One of the primary targets of COINTELPRO was the civil rights movement, particularly organizations like the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, SCLC, and the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, SNCC. The FBI, threatened by the growing power and influence of these organizations, sought to sow discord within their ranks, discredit their leaders, and undermine their support base. The FBI's tactics against civil rights leaders were often ruthless and deeply personal. Martin Luther King Jr., a prominent target of COINTELPRO, was subjected to intense surveillance, harassment, and intimidation campaigns. The agency tapped his phones, bugged his hotel rooms, and spread rumors about his personal life in an attempt to discredit him and destroy his reputation. Malcolm X, another influential figure in the civil rights movement, also became a target of COINTELPRO. The FBI, viewing Malcolm X's message of black empowerment and self-defense as a threat to social order, sought to undermine his influence and sow discord between his organization, the Nation of Islam, and other civil rights groups. The FBI's campaign against civil rights leaders extended beyond surveillance and harassment. The agency, in some instances, actively sought to incite violence and create chaos within these movements. The FBI's role in the assassination of Fred Hampton, a charismatic leader of the Illinois Black Panther Party, remains a chilling example of the agency's willingness to resort to extreme measures to silence dissent. COINTELPRO's reach extended far beyond the civil rights movement. The FBI also targeted anti-war groups, student activists, feminist organizations, and even environmental groups. The agency's criteria for targeting seemed to be any group or individual that challenged the status quo, questioned government authority, or advocated for social or political change. The full extent of COINTELPRO's illegal and unethical activities remained hidden from public view until 1971, when a group of activists led by the Citizens Commission to investigate the FBI broke into an FBI office in Media, Pennsylvania, and stole classified documents later known as the Media Files. These files, leaked to the press, revealed the shocking truth about COINTELPRO, exposing the FBI's systematic campaign of surveillance disruption and sabotage against American citizens. The revelations sparked national outrage and condemnation, leading to congressional hearings, investigations, and calls for reform. The Church Committee, formed in 1975 to investigate intelligence abuses, conducted a thorough investigation into COINTELPRO, revealing the program's illegal activities and the extent of the FBI's overreach. The Church Committee's findings led to a series of reforms within the intelligence community, including the passage of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, or FISA, in 1978, which established a legal framework for government surveillance and aimed to prevent future abuses. However, many critics argued that these reforms did not go far enough, and that the intelligence community still operated with too much secrecy and too little oversight. COINTELPRO, despite its exposure and official termination, left an indelible scar on American society. The program's legacy continues to fuel distrust in government, particularly within communities that were targeted for their activism and dissent. The FBI's actions during the COINTELPRO era serve as a chilling reminder of the fragility of civil liberties and the constant need to safeguard the right to dissent in a democratic society. The mid-1980s witnessed a scandal of American foreign policy, revealing a tangled web of secret deals, lies, and a blatant disregard for the law. This was the Iran-Contra affair, a saga that would expose the dark underbelly of the Reagan administration's pursuit of its Cold War agenda. The story begins with a hostage crisis. In 1985, several American citizens were being held captive in Lebanon by Hezbollah, a militant group backed by Iran. Desperate to secure their release, the Reagan administration, despite its public stance of refusing to negotiate with terrorists, embarked on a risky and clandestine operation. In a move that would once again shock the world, the United States, through intermediaries in Israel, began secretly selling arms to Iran. The arms sales, carried out in direct violation of a U.S. embargo against Iran, were intended to curry favor with the Iranian government, hoping to leverage their influence over Hezbollah to secure the release of the hostages. The arms for hostages deal was itself a controversial and clandestine operation, but the scandal took an even more sinister turn when it was revealed that the proceeds from the arms sales were being diverted to fund the Contras, a right-wing rebel group fighting the socialist government in Nicaragua. The Reagan administration, vehemently opposed to the Sandinista government in Nicaragua, which it viewed as a communist threat in America's backyard, was determined to support the Contras in their fight against the Sandinistas. However, Congress, wary of being drawn into another Vietnam-like conflict, had explicitly banned U.S. military aid to the Contras. Undeterred by congressional opposition, the Reagan administration, in a move that would later be deemed illegal, sought alternative ways to fund the Contras. This led to the second, even more clandestine aspect of the Iran-Contra affair, the diversion of profits from the Iranian arms sales to the Contras. The operation, overseen by a shadowy network of officials within the National Security Council, involved selling arms to Iran at inflated prices, pocketing the profits, and then funneling those funds to the Contras through a complex network of shell companies and bank accounts. The operation was carried out in direct violation of U.S. law and without the knowledge or consent of Congress. The Iran-Contra scheme was a high-stakes gamble fueled by a combination of Cold War ideology, a desire to free the American hostages, and a belief that the ends justified the means. The Reagan administration, convinced of its righteousness, seemed oblivious to the potential consequences of its actions both domestically and internationally. The Iran-Contra affair began to unravel in late 1985 when an Iranian arms shipment was intercepted by Lebanese authorities. The subsequent media investigations and congressional hearings revealed the shocking truth about the Reagan administration's secret dealings, sparking a firestorm of controversy. The American public, already wary of government secrecy after Watergate, was outraged to learn that their own government was selling arms to a country it considered a state sponsor of terrorism, and then using the profits to fund a rebel group in defiance of Congress. The scandal shook the foundations of trust in government, further eroding public confidence in its leaders. The Iran-Contra affair had significant repercussions for the Reagan presidency, tarnishing its legacy and raising questions about the president's knowledge of the illegal activities. While Reagan himself was never directly implicated in the wrongdoing, the scandal cast a long shadow over his administration and fueled accusations of abuse of power and disregard for the rule of law. The Iran-Contra affair also had lasting consequences for U.S. foreign policy, particularly in Central America. The scandal exposed the cynical nature of U.S. involvement in the region, fueling anti-American sentiment and further destabilizing an already volatile part of the world. From the shadowy corridors of the Watergate Hotel to the clandestine laboratories of MK-Ultra, from the hushed backrooms of COINTELPRO to the covert arms deals of the Iran-Contra affair, a disturbing pattern emerges. Time and again, those in power, driven by a potent cocktail of ideology, ambition, and fear, have sought to operate outside the bounds of law and accountability. They have shrouded their actions in secrecy, justifying their transgressions in the name of national security, the greater good, or simply the preservation of their own power. The consequences of these conspiracies, once exposed, have been profound. The Watergate scandal left a lasting stain on the presidency, eroding public trust in government and casting a long shadow over American politics. The Tuskegee Syphilis Study exposed the dark underbelly of medical racism, shattering the image of the benevolent healer and leaving a legacy of mistrust that continues to haunt the healthcare system. The CIA's MK-Ultra program, with its mind control experiments and disregard for human life, shattered the illusion of American innocence, revealing a government willing to engage in morally reprehensible acts in the name of national security. The FBI's COINTELPRO operations, targeting civil rights activists and other dissidents, exposed the fragility of civil liberties and the dangers of an unaccountable security state. The Iran-Contra affair, with its secret arms deals and disregard for international law, tarnished America's image abroad, revealing a government willing to engage in hypocrisy and double-dealing to achieve its foreign policy objectives. In the 1980s, there were significant concerns about the intentional spread of HIV and hepatitis through contaminated blood products, including those obtained from plasma centers. Plasma centers collect plasma from donors for various purposes, including the production of plasma-derived products such as clotting factors and immunoglobulins. During the early years of the HIV/AIDS epidemic, there were thousands and thousands of cases where individuals were infected with HIV and hepatitis through contaminated blood products, mostly those obtained from plasma centers. This was a tragic and preventable aspect of the HIV/AIDS crisis that led to the implementation of more stringent screening and testing protocols for blood and plasma donations. Since then, significant progress has been made in ensuring the safety of blood and plasma products through improved screening techniques and donor selection processes. Today, plasma centers and blood donation facilities have rigorous screening procedures in place because of this to prevent the transmission of HIV, hepatitis, or AIDS. This is a testament to the resilience of humanity and the tireless efforts of those who fought for change. The journey from betrayal to redemption can remind us that even in the face of grave injustice, there is always hope for a better tomorrow. The stories of these conspiracies, while disturbing, offer valuable lessons for a nation grappling with its own history and seeking to safeguard its future. They remind us that power, unchecked corruption, secrecy breeds abuse, and that the ends never justify the means. They also remind us of the importance of vigilance, of holding those in power accountable, and of demanding transparency from our leaders. The journalists who tirelessly pursued the truth behind Watergate, the whistleblowers who risked their careers to expose the Tuskegee Syphilis Study and MKUltra, the activists who challenged the FBI's COINTELPRO operations, and the congressional committees that investigated the Iran-Contra affair, all played a vital role in bringing these conspiracies to light. Their actions serve as a powerful reminder that a functioning democracy requires more than just elections and institutions. It requires engaged citizens, a free and independent press, and a willingness to speak truth to power, no matter the cost. The fight for truth and justice is an ongoing one. As technology advances and the lines between fact and fiction blur, it is more important than ever to be critical thinkers, to question authority, and to demand accountability from those who hold power. The future of democracy depends on it. Dark history doesn't repeat itself. Dark history has never stopped. So ask yourself, what was gain of function really about? The term, often shrouded in scientific jargon, refers to research that aims to enhance the properties of a virus, making it more transmissible or deadly. Proponents argue that such studies can help us better understand pathogens and prepare for potential pandemics. Critics, however, warn of the catastrophic risks involved, including the possibility of accidental release or misuse. In recent years, gain-of-function research has sparked intense debate and controversy, especially in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic. Some have speculated about the origins of the virus and whether such research played a role. While definitive answers remain elusive, the evidence of where and who funded it is clear. The controversy underscores a broader issue: the tension between scientific advancement and ethical responsibility. As we navigate these complex questions, it is crucial to learn from the past. The lessons of Watergate, Tuskegee, MKUltra, and other dark chapters in history remind us of the dangers of unchecked power and the importance of transparency and accountability. The pursuit of knowledge should never come at the expense of human lives or ethical principles. The story of gain-of-function research is still being written, and its implications are far-reaching. It challenges us to think critically about the balance between innovation, safety, and the past, and to question the motivations and actions of those in positions of authority. In a world where the lines between right and wrong are often blurred, it is up to us to demand clarity and integrity. As we move forward, let us remain vigilant, informed, and engaged. The future of our society depends on our ability to confront these issues with courage and wisdom. The cycle of dark history can only be broken if we are willing to shine a light on the shadows and hold those in power accountable for their actions. The fight for truth and justice is not just a relic of the past, because America doesn't have a dark past. America has a dark always. From 1932 till 1972, they were poisoning the black community, which in turn poisoned thousands of others. During MKUltra, they poisoned a population of unwilling subjects. They spread AIDS, HIV, and hepatitis through the black and gay communities, and to not think they aren't possibly repeating another cycle? History would say the joke is on you. Wake up, America. It has always been a 10-year cycle, and it has never stopped.